Hi, I'm the Space Quest historian, and recently we had the good fortune to play Loom with the creator of said game, Loom, BRIAN MORIARTY, Professor BRIAN MORIARTY, in fact. It was a joyous occasion spread over 2 nights, Sundays, week in between, and it was just fun. We had a bunch of people in the chat, and they were all voice acting the parts, some with serious fervor and dedication, some just completely weirdly like me. But anyway, it was a ton of fun, and of course BRIAN MORIARTY played Chaos. After we were done with the game, the good professor indulged us in what we thought was going to be a quick Q&A, but actually turned out to be somewhere like 45 minutes of a Q&A. So we got some good questions from the text chat, because we were live streaming this, so we got some text chat questions, and the actual participants, the actors, as you were, also had their own questions. So here it is. Here is the Q&A with BRIAN MORIARTY, creator of Loom. It's a weird way of saying that. I'm going to do that again. Loom. Nice. Shit. We could, of course, just end it right here, but we have a save game at the start of the maze, and as I...
Day 937.
And as I wander aimlessly around this maze, the good Professor Moriarty has indulged us with a bit of Q&A. So I'm wondering if anyone in the chat... I don't know how you raise your hand during all this, so I guess the one who just says...
I'll keep an eye out for questions.
Oh, cool. But some people in the voice chat here actually had some questions they'd like to pose to the Professor, but were either a little embarrassed or didn't want to interrupt the game, the last stream, so that's why we're doing... Q&A now. So, questions for the professor?
I've got one.
Yeah, let's go.
Were there any drafts that, for whatever reason, didn't make it into the game that you wish had? And if so, what were they?
No, we only implemented the ones we could afford.
Okay.
The ones we could afford.
So the extra ones that are in the Book of Patterns, those were just...
Those are red herrings, but also to make you not sure what drafts would be available, right?
Yeah. Kind of adds to the lore too, because I remember like the Temblor,
right?
The one that the dragon referenced,
right?
Awesome.
Siriar asks, did you have your own idea of Loom 2?
So yes, there were. It was originally intended to be a trilogy. The second game was going to be called The Forge, but another game company has since taken that trademark, so it would have to be called something else now. The third game was called The Fold, and the second game was about Rusty. Rusty was the star, and he goes back to try to get back the floating forge from Chaos and rescue his family.
As Luke Skywalker.
So cool.
And Bobbin appeared kind of as an Obi-Wan figure in that he would occasionally fly in as a swan to offer timely advice. And in the third game, at the end of the first game, Rusty teams up with Fleece, and the third game is about Fleece and the final battle to get the Forge back from Chaos. And at the end of the third game, the Swans return, and they're kind of the cavalry. They come in and help restore the balance.
So it just becomes more and more epic as the series would have gone along.
Right. And so the second game was mostly about Rusty, and the third game was mostly about Fleece being helped by Rusty, and occasional appearances by Bobbin, but at the end, the Weavers return.
Oh, can we drop the game music volume just a tiny bit?
I just saw that. Yes.
Sophie Wright asks, did the voice actors, and I assume she means the official ones on the CD, not us, match your expectations on the characters you created?
So the original voice actors are the ones on the audio tape that came in the original first edition of the game.
Yes.
And I believe they recruited many of those to reprise their roles in the talkie version. I know some of them were re-recruited. I wasn't involved in any version of the game after the original EGA and Amiga and Atari ST versions.
Yeah,
But I believe they did re-recruit some of the original actors.
I think most of them they did, because I know, Hetchel, Bobbin, Cigna, the elders, they're all the same voice actors.
Yeah. Okay.
I am.
Yes.
I'm in the middle of trying to find the Easter egg with Cobb at the end, and I just want to briefly show you what is happening on my screen. These are the search results I'm coming up with so far. Loom knitting Easter eggs, easy rainbow loom Easter eggs. These are these are not the droids we are looking for. I shall move on. I'll try and find them.
So speaking of the CD version, you asked us to ask you about the conversion process.
Oh, so the thing is, the original art was done, as you know, in a format, which was a fixed palette of 16 colors. Red, black and white, a couple shades of gray, all the primary and secondary colors, except that the dark yellow was kind of changed slightly to be kind of an intestinal shade of brown. And those 16 colors were all we had for the first version of that Mark Ferrari and Gary Winnick were mainly responsible for creating, with some help from Steve Purcell and Ken Macklin. Of course, Mark Ferrari's backgrounds are just, incredible. Nobody thought an EGA game could look anything like that. So when it came time to convert it, they suddenly had this huge palette. It was 256 colors, unique colors on the screen at a time, but only 256 at a time from a particular palette. And there were new paint tools. So all of the games were made. The art was made with Electronic Arts Deluxe Paint program, their commercial paint program. That was the tool we used.
Yeah, I played around with that
all the versions.
Yeah, sorry.
Right. So they came out with a 256 VGA version of Deluxe Paint, and that was used to create. So I wasn't supervising or involved in the art at all. But they hired, unlike the original game, which was basically all the backgrounds were, except maybe one or two, were made by Mark Ferrari. In the remakes and the CD-ROM versions, they had a variety of art, several different artists working on the game at once, and they kind of bring a mix of different styles to it, and they're also very enamored of the gradation. They're very thrilled by the fact they can do like these quasi-fine gradations. So the art style, in my opinion, is not quite as consistent as it is in the EGA version. And also, we took advantage of some of the limitations of EGA to produce certain mechanical and emotional effects in the original version that are kind of lost in the conversion. So, for instance, in the original game, when you're at the very beginning, when you wake up on top of the mountain and you're there ready to start the adventure, there's a single red leaf sitting on a dead tree there. So that's the only red thing in the scene. And we did that deliberately to draw your attention to it, to make you touch it, so you would learn that you could touch things. That was an important learning moment.
That's so cool.
So we deliberately used the limited palette to draw your attention to the leaf. On the 256 color version, they put a fancy, multicolored orange sunset in the background, which kind of spoiled that. I mean, their intention was good, but because I wasn't supervising, I didn't say, no, don't do that there. That's deliberate, right? So there are lots of instances where kind of the intent, the artistic and mechanical intent is kind of softened, not ruined by any means. Also, there are significant differences in different versions of the game. So the FM Towns version we just played is the first 256 color version. And then for the CD-ROM edition, they used some of this art, but they changed some of it as well. They also added a few pieces of art that weren't in the original game. But unfortunately, they also, to accommodate the CD audio, cut about a third of the dialogue.
Yeah.
Oh, not to mention some of the character close-ups were also cut, which is a shame because those are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Right, so a lot was in the CD-ROM version, which is unfortunately the version they're selling on Steam, is kind of a wrecked version of the game. So if you insist on 256 colors, this is the version to play. But if you want the real game the way it was intended by its original creators, it's the EGA.
Absolutely.
with the ad-lib soundtrack, because that's what I had when I developed it.
PC speaker.
Yeah, no, we're not doing the PC speaker. Stop saying that. In the meantime,
second prize, 2 PC speakers.
In the meantime, I have actually managed to find the Easter egg where Cobb lifts his hood, and looking through that, it also reminded me of a different Easter egg, but I'll show you that in a minute. First, let's get rid of that and put up my desktop here. I'm gonna try and see if I can enlarge the window a little bit. And I should probably tell the game to shut up. There you go. And let me just screen share this for my compatriots here so they can watch it in real time. Hang on a bit. Yeah, here we go. This is, of course, we're stealing someone else's content here. I hope they will appreciate it. Bobby Summers, the YouTube channel.
They're all stealing it from Disney.
Well, that's true. And so are we! Oh. But anyway, he has presented, in the original EGA version, no less, the Easter egg that happens when Cobb lifts the hood. This looks terrible on the stream. I'm sorry. Just hang on a bit. Let me just see if I can get the entire window to show up. There we go.
It looks good here.
There we go. There we go. Let's go.
Uh-oh.
If you fear nothing, then you'd better not touch me.
Ah, riddle! I like riddles. Let's answer this little riddle once and for all, shall we? No! Yeah!
So that's not what happened in...
I'd say I didn't want him.
So the EGA version is much better.
That is the EGA version.
No, it's not. That's not the EGA version.
No, there was a little bit of the animation missing out of that.
Yeah, so in the EGA version, he gets sucked into his hood.
Yep.
It's like a black hole.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. It must have lagged then, because that did actually happen on my screen.
Oh, it lagged then. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You missed out on that.
You could try showing that part again, but
I'll do that.
Yeah, but this does not look like the EGA version. This looks like the VGA to me. I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure it is. There's a lot of dithering going on, and whoop, in he goes.
Oh, there it goes.
Did I just notice something? That Bobbin doesn't look like he actually has a head?
Yeah, he just looks like a...
Yeah.
Oh, he just looks like a ball of light.
So wait. So that means it's like the Weavers don't actually have heads. They're just glowing eyes hiding under those cloaks?
They're just nothing.
The voids?
If you fear nothing.
Yeah.
You fear nothing.
I literally told you, if you fear nothing, don't look under my bloody hood. You wouldn't listen. Your fault.
All right. Let me look up the second Easter egg. It's kind of a naughty Easter egg, but...
There's another one?
Yeah, there's...
Oh, wait, I can see it.
Oh, you're talking about that one.
Oh, that. Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get this into...
this. Yeah.
Image on new tab.
So this doesn't actually appear in the game. You have to get your hands on the audio file, on the visual file, and then change the palette. Yes, this is one of the artists being clever.
Yeah,
Francisco, did you write that?
Yeah, this if you take a screenshot of Elder Atropos from the CD-ROM version, maybe it's in the FM Towns as well. I don't know. Someone wrote with like a single increment of not black. Wrote Loom sucks in the face of Elder Atropos. So what they've done here is just fill in his face with red color so you can see that it actually says Loom sucks in his face when he's talking. It's a naughty Easter egg. It's very naughty. It does not suck.
So we got time for any more questions?
Typical disgruntled artist stuff.
Yeah.
I think somebody was probably not very happy with the fact that they were converting the game and they were cutting all of their artwork out, throwing it to the floor, throwing it into the back of the data files and not accessing them.
So remember, the people who did the conversion were not the people who did the original art at all. Although I think Steve Purcell did some of the 256 color conversions. I think he was involved in some of them. But again, I was not present when that was done.
Oh, I see. Alexander Mejia has a question. Where is all the original hand-drawn art stored? I don't think there is any hand-drawn art in either the EGA or VGA version. Is it?
There exists a large portfolio of concept art for the game, along with the original script the scum source code.
Yeah.
All of these things exist.
Don't put that on eBay.
I disavow all knowledge of their existence.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, Activision, for some reason, will come after you.
Not Activision.
No, but they came after Al Lowe.
Disney.
Yeah, Disney
owns this now.
Disney will actually get the Activision lawyers to come after you. That's how that works.
Yes, I will come home someday and there'll be nothing left in my house but a foundation.
Sophie Wright has 2 questions.
Yeah, I've got them typed in the chat.
Okay, cool.
First one, would you finish the game now if you were funded? And if so, would you stay point and click or try another scheme?
Would I finish the game? You mean finish the sequels?
Probably.
Yeah, okay. Would I? If I could enjoy the same this may sound mystical, but it's actually very important. If I could enjoy the same complete lack of interference in terms of creative decision making that I had for Loom, yes, I would. But that's nearly impossible nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all remember the Wadget Eye or Telltale or Double Fine Come and Talk to Me.
Right.
And Wadget Eye actually did talk to me.
The reason I mentioned those 3 is because I knew they would respect that wish of mine. And why they would respect it.
But the rights are so tangled up that it's actually impossible to do a sequel.
Well, the Loom is controlled by Disney. It's actually controlled by Lucasfilm, which is now it's a division of Disney, which is composed entirely of lawyers. And,
yes.
and actually, immediately after the Loom post-mortem, where I made that invitation, as it happened, both Tim Schafer and his business manager were in the audience. By the way, so was Ron Gilbert and several other members of the team at the time. And the business manager of Double Fine spoke to me and mentioned that he had, in fact, Double Fine had, in fact, optioned the rights to Loom when they optioned the rights to several other of the classic games, such as Grim Fandango and Full Throttle and Day of a Tentacle. They also apparently had optioned Zack and Loom. But when you buy an option, the deal is that you have a certain number of a period of time, usually anywhere between 2 and 5 years, to start production. And once you start production, you are allowed to finish. But if production does not stop before the option expires, you lose the right to do it. So they had started Grim Fandango and Day of the Throttle and Day of the Throttle, Full Throttle, and so they were allowed to finish those. They had not started on Zack or Loom. So those options had expired just a few months before my post-mortem. So he told me that he had gone back to Disney to renew the options and was informed that someone else had optioned those games. He was not allowed to tell me who had optioned them or for how long, but that was back in 2015. My guess is that option is probably expired now, but I do not know who bought the rights. I was never contacted by anyone, and I have no idea what the status of the game is now.
I'm going to guess Activision, but that's just me. Sophie Wright also has a question. Oh, sorry, Gemini. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting. You asked Sophie's question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the other part of that was if you could remake Loom and the sequels and all that, would you stay point and click or try another scheme?
That's a really good question. So if they're going to remake, so there's two things here. One is, are they going to remake or remaster Loom, the original game? And 2, what are you going to do with the sequels? So first, the remastering. I don't like most of the remasters I've seen. They don't add much to the game, in my opinion. If I were going to remaster Loom, what I would do is I would leave the original EGA graphics exactly as they are, but I would give it the most glorious digital soundtrack you have ever heard, fully voiced.
Oh, man.
With the original full score that it was intended to have. I mean, it was the game is deeply inspired by Swan Lake, which is 2.5 hours of music. I got to include about 12 minutes of music in the game. So I would completely remake the game's soundtrack, but I would leave the visuals alone because I think they're just fine the way they are.
Everybody get your audition tapes ready.
As for the sequels, I really do not know. Considering what is possible now, that it's possible to make something that looks literally like a Disney movie that's interactive, it would be very tempting to try and do something, spectacular. And I don't know how to answer that. tell me how much money I have.
It's considerably more than they did with that King's Quest cartoon game.
Let's hope.
What is that? Princeless Bride. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it depends on the budget and everything. But I mean, if I only had a small budget, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing a retro series of where we stick to the 16 color art and do it that way. That would be fun, actually. Is to deliberately take on those limitations. The one thing I would insist on, though, is full voicing. I think the voicing adds so much.
As we have plainly heard.
Audio tape. That's why I did the audio tape, so you could hear the characters, and you would have their voices in your head as you played the game. Because I think the voices communicate so much about the characters. So I would want to voice it, which was not possible in 1990.
No.
But I could see doing a 16 color versions of those games. I think that would be kind of fun to try and there's only one person I would hire to draw the backgrounds.
Mark.
Mark, who did Thimbleweed Park, which is why Thimbleweed Park looks like Loom Island. Right?
There's that interesting story about why they had to cut down the script for the CD-ROM version, which is that the CD-ROM version actually uses Redbook audio for the voiceovers.
Right.
They're not digital files on the CD, so they only had, let's say, 60 minutes.
Minus the code.
Yeah,
right?
minus
the code of graphics. So yeah, that's why they cut it, because they could not fit all of the dialogue onto the disc.
Yeah, that was like
sound cards didn't have digital audio. The only PC that had digital audio then was a Macintosh. And it was crappy audio. So that was why they cut the dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's why the Towns version isn't cut, because it doesn't have voice dialogue.
And intriguingly, the CD-ROM script. What did you think of the cut down version by famously racist author Orson Scott Card?
Racist and homophobic.
Oh yeah, that too.
Oh yeah, lovely man, isn't he?
So I'll put aside the discussion of Scott for the moment.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
He's actually a friend of mine.
Oh my God.
That's not to say that I agree with some of the stuff he's come out with lately. Not at all. Did he rewrite the dialogue? I was not aware that. I thought it was just cut. I didn't realize it was rewritten.
He's credited as having redone the dialogue for Loom.
So that's interesting. He was not directly involved in Loom, but he was one of the first people to play it. He was hanging out at Skywalker Ranch, I think, hoping for work. And this is when he was not quite as famous as he later became. He had not yet written Ender's Game, but he had written some other marvelous stuff I was a huge fan of and still am. I brought him into the main house, George's office, and played for him on the big audio system there, the audio drama, and he was very complimentary and actually gave the game one of its first reviews in Fantasy and Science Fiction, the magazine. And it's not well known, but he actually nominated the game for a Nebula Award. His nomination was not not finalized, but he did put it in nomination. It was the first game so honored. But it's not on the official list because you have to pass a certain threshold of votes in order to get on the final list. So it was not a finalist, but it was a contender for the Nebula Award for 1991.
Interesting. I've just located the review here.
It's a very. I mean, I was like kind of flabbergasted when I read what he wrote. It was very complimentary, and so he kind of worked on stuff with us. I know he had a role in the dialogue of Loom. I don't know what the role was. All I had to do was cut stuff. Maybe he rewrote some of it. I don't know. I played through part of the CD-ROM version once. It was so disgusted I stopped. And it's not to denigrate the extreme effort. So something you should know about CD-ROM development. So Jenny Sward was the lead person on the CD-ROM version, not the Towns version, the CD-ROM version. And she had a terrible task because CD-ROMs, and when they first came out, writable CD-ROMs, first of all, the burner to write a CD-ROM cost around $10,000. And you had to put the blank CD in this little plastic caddy to keep it dust-free. And the failure rate of those $20 per disc CDs was about 50%. And they wrote in real time. So she would set up a burn a disc, wait an hour, and then take out the disc and pray that it would play. And you might not know it was broken until you were halfway through the game.
Oh God!
At the end, the frustration, I can't even imagine what she went through. At the end, she had stacks of dead CDs in her office. I mean, thousands of dollars worth of blank CDs that did not burn properly. The technology was very unreliable at first. And so she was very heroic in going through this terrible process of finally getting a master that would pass playtesting. It was the technical challenges were immense.
Wow.
So I salute the people who made it. I don't want to denigrate the people at all. I mean, they did very good work, but it was just if they had waited a year or two, they could have done it with digital sound, and it would have been much better.
Yeah, a year later, Day of the Tentacle comes out in 1990. Is it 2 or 3? The CD-ROM.
Yeah,
I think it's 92.
And by then, the Creative Sound Blaster was out, and they had digital audio, and that you didn't have to use Redbook anymore. So,
I think we have 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. I think Ikifu's question.
Okay.
Is it? Oh, sorry, I'm just stealing your job all of a sudden.
No, go ahead. I don't have any from Ikifu.
Is it the colors themselves that are important to that EGA look, or is the low resolution, the 320 by 200, also an important factor in it?
Well, it's sort of both. So you have to remember that when those games were played, they were played on monitors where the picture, the original resolution was 320 by 200. The pixels were not square; they were slightly taller than normal pixels.
Yeah.
And they were shown on a fairly large, like a 12, 13-inch monitor, and the monitors or a TV set frequently, and so that softened the image somewhat. The pixel edges were not hard, so it looked softer, which kind of helped, especially with the dithering. It helped smooth the look of it a bit. When you play it on, like, say, Scum VM, it looks very hard-edged. But it didn't look that way back in the early 90s. When most people played, which was often on a TV set, there would be this natural softening of the image.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one last question, I think. From Sophie Wright, the game influenced a lot of my interests in gaming, and now I'm a dev. Brian, what do you feel is your lasting legacy, or perhaps your greatest contribution to video gaming?
Lodestar, easy. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Would someone kill him for saying that? Lodestar, out of the frying pan into the fire. My greatest legacy. I like to hope that I have not yet contributed my last word.
Right.
Oh, that is a good answer.
Can I sneak in a little meta question?
Sure.
What's one question that nobody ever asks you that you wish they would?
I like that question.
Good one.
Oh, I'd have to think really.
I mean, about Loom, or I guess anything in general. Really.
Yeah, everyone says, "Ask me about Loom." What's the one thing they'd never ask about?
Yeah.
Someone should ask me what my original vision of the game was.
Okay.
What was your original vision of the game?
The original vision of the game, which was quite impossible to execute in 1989 or 88 when I developed it, was that each draft, that there were 29 drafts that you would cast, and that each draft was based on the major melodic line of one of the 29 movements of the Swan Lake Ballet.
Wow.
Interesting.
And you would play them in order, and at the end of the game, as a reward, it would play the entire score of the ballet as a background as the game played itself, the way you had played it.
Wow.
So you basically would get a movie at the end that was synchronized to your movements with the thing. It was just this incredibly ambitious, insane idea, because the technology to do it was completely impossible. But that was what I wanted to do, was a game that was basically reprised, not the story of the ballet, which is quite different from the story of Loom, but it was entirely much more closely linked to the music of the ballet. And in the end, as a reprise, you could watch your story replayed with the original score in synchronization.
Wow. Yeah,
Like a dance.
That would have been awesome. I mean, I heard in the post-mortem that you wanted the player to conduct with the mouse, like using mouse gestures, which was a new thing.
Yes, gestural. I wanted the gestural interface, but many people did not have mice yet. It was not a common peripheral because Windows was common. DOS was the prevalent thing. Yeah. So I had to abandon that, and I came up with the drafts, which could be implemented on the keyboard as well as with the mouse.
Yeah, which is
so that's so it came. I mean, so it was a compromise. But I wanted it to be gestures. Originally, we were going to draw shapes, and we were going to have AI image recognition that would distinguish your shape. And we actually had the code. I mean, we knew how to do it. I don't know if anyone had done that yet. Probably not, since mice were not common yet. No. So we might have been the first.
And it's weird to think of a time in our lives when mice were like this extra special periphery you had to buy in the store and sound cards. I mean, we take so many things for granted now.
For PCs.
Yeah. I mean,
and the sound cards were expensive. An ad-lib board was like $200-300. That was a lot of money in 1990.
Yeah. You know, like you had the computers that gave it to you right out of the box, like the Mac, the Amiga, the Atari ST. They all came with mice right out of the box. The PC, on the other hand, was just like you got a keyboard, and the computer.
And if you get everything else, if you're lucky, maybe you can.
And to get a mouse, you had to buy a mouse interface card. It wasn't just this plug-in. There was no mouse port.
Oh yeah, a mouse systems card. That was a big one.
Yeah. So in fact, a lot of the soundboards, the Sound Blaster had a mouse port as part of the board as convenience. It was basically the Sound Blaster was really the first gaming board.
Yeah, because it had the game port on it.
Right. So, but the ad-lib, was the first, FM. Board. It was the first serious soundboard and the first, best, the first decent seller. But only gamers had it.
Yeah, which is strange because I remember the advertisement for it was, they were trying to target musicians and professionals and such.
Which that actually I had a question related to that then too. What was the motivation behind releasing the Roland patch?
So when we did the score, I had to pick. I had to take the score Swan Lake and cut it down to, like a few minutes. I had to pick I forget how many cues. It's like 8 cues from the ballet, 9 if you count the overture, which is only in the Roland version. We actually came with an extra disc for that one thing. I have the original orchestral score, the big pages that the conductor has, and I made copies of those, and we sent them off to a fellow named George Sanger, also known as the Fat Man. Yep. And he converted them to MIDI. He did a MIDI transcription of the score, and from that MIDI, all of the subsequent versions were made as reductions from his score. Has the complete orchestral score, so we had a MIDI version of the score available, and there was this Roland, the MT32, which was a multi-voice stereophonic sound card that if you had the right gear, it would have cost you about $600 to put one on your PC when it came out, but a few people have it, and we decided, wouldn't it be cool if you send us a little money? I forget, it was like $1 or something, but you could get this extra disc that would give you the MIDI files for the Roland, and as a surprise, you would get an overture that played number 14 from Swan Lake before the game began.
Yeah, the one that I mistakenly played at the start.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like the Towns version included that, but doesn't have the overture.
Yeah, I think it just put
all the overture is it's a black screen with the word overture on it. Well,
which is how
we couldn't afford any animation, but that's how overtures were done for the Roadshow movies in the 50s and 60s. Yeah. That's exactly what they did. They put the word overture on the screen.
One last question from Sophie Wright, and I think we're gonna have to call it after this because oh, okay. We'll have 2 more questions, and then we're gonna have to cut it because I have to get up for work in the morning. I know I want to stay here forever, but we all have lives, sadly. Sophie Wright is literally dying in the chat. She wants to know what your musical background is.
So let's see. I play bass and keyboards badly. I'm a fairly decent singer. I don't sight read music, but I can write with notation. When I do musical production, I do it in notation. That's what I'm used to doing. And music is the most important thing in my life. More important than games or almost anything. It's like music.
Wow. Yeah,
and it was Tchaikovsky who introduced me to classical music in junior high school. I accidentally came upon a tape that contained suites from the Nutcracker and Swan Lake, and I was just I'd never heard anything so beautiful. I mean, he's the greatest melodist of the 19th century, and it was just beautiful. And I started collecting his music, and eventually got my hands on my first complete recording of Swan Lake, and now I own over 40 of those.
Wow!
And
I'm pretty sure I have every commercial recording of the ballet ever released, including all the DVDs and Blu-rays.
Well, Sophie Wright says you're now soulmates and you don't even know it. And also, I think it's amazing that, I mean, as a kid, I had no idea what the music of Loom was, and I didn't know who Tchaikovsky was in any of that. It's amazing how you've managed to introduce the beauty of Swan Lake to, I don't know, hundreds, millions of game players since 1990. Some of whom might even still just go, "Hey, that's the theme to Loom," instead of, "Oh wait, that's."
So I don't know if you've heard the story of the soundtrack album to Loom.
Oh right, yeah.
Right. So a few years around 92 or something, the Japanese Cup. So in America, nobody made soundtrack albums to games. No one had thought of that yet, but they had been doing it for some years in Japan. And this company came to Lucasfilm and asked for the rights to release some soundtrack CDs of Lucasfilm games in Japan, and they agreed to do it. So they showed up and went over to Skywalker Ranch, and on a big 15-inch per second tape recorder, recorded the Chensei ad-lib scores to all of the games, including Loom. And they ended up releasing 2 discs. One was a medley of songs from a bunch of games, and the second disc was nothing but Loom. And it's a very rare disc. It goes for lots of money if you can find one on eBay. I know because I sold a few to make some money, and because I have a box of them. And it's a hideous cover. It's a hideous cover, and what they did is rather unusual. So they had this. They didn't seem to understand that what they had was Tchaikovsky there. So what they did is they took the tape that they made and they had it rearranged for a jazz ensemble.
Okay.
What?
Like the
Right. They
like the
rearranged
disco
jazz. No,
What?
jazz.
disco Star Wars.
like a jazz quartet, and it was performed live by a jazz quartet of not very good talent. There's a lot of strange. So it's a strange disc. Like the overture, for instance, is track 4.
Yeah, that's.
And the performance is it sounds like a student performance. It's not a professional group. It's a student performance. It's very.
That is unfortunate.
Oh my
Yeah, I was gonna
God.
say, as long as it wasn't.
Say no more.
There it is. There's the disc. So it's like it gives you eye bleed just to look at the cover of that thing, right?
Lovely.
That is horrible. That looks like
It's low res,
that looks
but
like
it's
a
also
magazine
horrible.
Stack.
I think it's supposed to be a cloth, like woven cloth. Is I think what they had in mind.
Man, what color is that? All of them. All of them.
You could barely read.
The colors of the rainbow.
You can barely read the logo.
I need the red adventure window to see through it.
Right.
Cover design by
All
its
colors are on
maker.
EGA.
So yeah, if you have
Can
a
I
copy of
ask a
that disc, if you have a copy of that disc, you get something worth several $100s in it.
All right, one last question.
Do you have any upcoming speaking events that we can cost you at? Are you attending Narroscope?
No, I won't be at Narroscope. I won't be at GDC right now. I'm not speaking. I have a film I am producing of the last speech I gave, which was at Adventure X in London in November 2017, talking about The Witness. I made a documentary of that lecture, and I was hoping to show it at the GDC Film Festival in March, but they did not respond to my queries about showing it there until way after the deadline. So it's not going to be shown there this year. Maybe next year, if they will answer my emails.
Yeah. That was a really good talk. I was in the audience for that. That is a really, really good talk.
I really enjoyed giving it.
It was fantastic. Yeah, and Sashnev has. Okay, we'll take one last one. Well, I'm really sorry. Okay, but that is the end.
2 chief weapons
Really
are surprised.
Yes, but this is
Amongst our weaponry, our such diverse elements as.
Would the sequels for Loom also have had the Tchaikovsky pieces of as their soundtrack, or would they have different classical soundtracks?
They were all Tchaikovsky, but not Swan Lake.
Right.
The Forge was definitely going to be the Fourth Symphony, and the Fold was probably going to be the Sixth.
So there you have it. There you have it. Can I just really, really honestly and wholeheartedly thank everyone in the chat, but especially Professor Moriarty for being a part of this momentous event. This was truly special. I mean, Loom, as I said, I was 10 years old when it came out. Probably played it on pirated discs around 11. Very sorry. I didn't pirate them myself because
I learned assembly language by pirating.
Okay, well, I feel sort of vindicated on that one. Anyway, my one true wish in life is to have a boxed copy of Loom on the shelf behind me. Still haven't found one. I'm sure there will be one day. If people are interested in watching the difference between the original EGA version and the CD-ROM VGA version, please go and check out my friend Alexander Mejia's channel, Human Interact. And he actually has a video where he plays both versions side by side.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is an interesting experiment. And he has a Russian dude as his co-commentator, Mr. DOS Nostalgic, who is very nostalgic about DOS.
Yes, he loves
I don't say.
So you could find if you look around for 10 seconds, you can find EGA Loom, and it plays. You can set up Scum VM so it plays nearly identically to what I saw in 1990. It's very, very close.
Yes.
The Scum VM people are amazing. The FM Town simulation is spot on.
Yeah.
It really sounds just like it sounded.
And we did the FM Towns version here in Scum VM, and yeah, big up to Scum VM obviously, because they are introduced. I mean,